They thought the cold would kill her. They were wrong about that. Wrong about everything. Lysandra Thornfield was on her knees in the snow when the truth first whispered through her mind. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a small, persistent voice that said, "You are not dying, not yet, not like this." The temperature had dropped to 35 degrees below zero. The wind screamed through the pines like a living thing,
I've got you.
hungry
Stay
and
with
vicious.
me.
Ice crystals
here.
hung
Don't let
suspended
go.
in the
Never.
air,
We're almost
glittering
there.
like broken glass under the pale light of a moon she could barely see through the blizzard. Her fingers were blue. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. She could no longer feel her feet, but somewhere deep in her chest, beneath the ribs that ached with every shallow breath, something was fighting. Something refused to surrender. She didn't know what it was yet. She would learn. 18 hours earlier, the world had been different. 18 hours earlier, she had still believed in mercy. The office of Alpha Aldrin Frostborn smelled like cedar and old coffee, the kind of smell that should have been comforting, familiar. But on that November morning, the 14th day of the month, it smelled like a funeral. Lisa stood in the center of the room, not sitting. They hadn't offered her a chair. Her hands were folded in front of her, fingers laced together so tightly the knuckles had gone white. She was a small woman, delicate, some said, fragile, 24 years old with honey brown hair that fell in waves past her shoulders and eyes the color of amber in firelight. She had never been beautiful in the way that turned heads, but she had been loved once. She thought she had been loved. Garrett Ashridge stood near the window, her husband, her mate of 3 years. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of strong jaw and steady hands that made him look dependable, trustworthy. He wore a flannel shirt, the blue one she had given him for his birthday 2 years ago. The sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. His arms were crossed over his chest. He was looking at the floor. Alpha Aldrin sat behind his desk. 55 years old, silver-haired, with the kind of face that had seen too many hard winters and not enough kindness. His eyes were the flat gray of storm clouds. He held a manila folder in his hands. Medical records, test results. 3 years of failure documented in clinical language. The calendar on the wall behind him showed a lake in summer. Blue water, green trees, sunlight on gentle waves. It was a cruel joke. Outside, the frost was already thick enough to crack the branches of the pines. Aldrin cleared his throat. The sound was like gravel shifting. "Lysandra," he said, not unkindly. That made it worse somehow. "We've run the tests 3 times. Dr. Brennan confirmed it again this morning." Lisa swallowed. Her throat was dry. "There must be a mistake," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Omegas aren't barren. It's biology. It's rare. It has to be stress. We've been trying, but maybe we just need more time." Garrett's jaw tightened. She could see the muscle working beneath the skin. "It's been 3 years, Lisa," he said. Flat, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. 3 years of trying, 3 years of the pack waiting for an heir to the beta line. "I can work harder," Lisa said. She turned to Aldrin, desperate now. "I organize the supply lines. I track the grain distribution. I manage the archives. I have value beyond—" "Paperwork," Aldrin interrupted. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Is for the elderly, Lysandra. We have a surplus of mouths and a deficit of resources. The winter reserves are down 42% this year. You know the law." She knew the law. The Frostborn pack was isolated, nestled high in the northern mountains, where the snow fell early and stayed late, where survival was not a guarantee. It was a daily negotiation. Every member of the pack had to contribute, had to pull their weight. If you couldn't hunt, couldn't fight, couldn't breed, you were a drain, a leak in the boat, and boats with leaks sank. "I'm the best archivist you have," Lisa said. Her voice cracked. She hated the sound of it. Weak, pleading. "I can be useful. I can—" "Serafina is pregnant." The name hit her like a slap. Serafina. Sarah. Her cousin. Her best friend since childhood. The girl who had braided her hair when they were young, who had held her hand at her mother's funeral, who had promised with tears in her eyes that they would always be sisters. Lisa turned her head slowly. Through the small window in the office door, she could see into the hallway. Sarah was standing there, 26 years old, with the same honey brown hair, the same delicate build. But where Lisa was soft, Sarah was polished. Where Lisa faded into the background, Sarah glowed. She was 5 months pregnant. The curve of her belly was visible even through the thick sweater she wore. One hand rested protectively over the swell. She was smiling, not broadly, just a small, secretive smile, and she was looking directly at Lysa. Sarah is carrying 3 pups, Aldrin continued. He set the folder down on the desk with a soft thud. Strong vitals, healthy development. Doctor, Brennan says she's never seen a more promising litter. Lisa felt something crack inside her chest, not her heart. That would have been too clean, too dramatic. This was slower, like ice breaking under pressure, 1,000 tiny fractures spreading through something that used to be whole. Garrett, she whispered. She turned to him, her husband, the man who had promised to build her a life. Please, you can't let them do this. He finally looked at her. His eyes were dark, tired, and in them, she saw something that made her knees weak. Relief. He was relieved to be rid of her. Sarah is strong, Lysa, Garrett said. He stepped forward, but he didn't reach for her, didn't touch her. She has the vitals of a warrior. She's going to give me strong pups. The Alpha has granted the annulment. Our bond? It's dissolved as of this morning. The room tilted. An annulment, not a divorce. In werewolf law, an annulment was a severing of the soul. It required a crime. Adultery. Treason. Barrenness. Barrenness was a crime against the Pack Survival Code. Section 4, Paragraph 2. You have until sunset to vacate the territory, Aldrin said. He stood up. Tall, looming, final. The weatherman is calling for a whiteout. Temperature will drop to 35 below by nightfall. If you leave now and move quickly, you might make it to the human town in the valley before the drifts get too high. Lisa stared at him. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Might. He had said might. Aldrin, she managed. Look outside. The storm is already starting. If you send me out there without a pack link, without protection, that is a death sentence. The Alpha's face didn't change. Then you'd better start walking fast, Lysandra. She turned back to Garrett one last time, reached out, grabbed the sleeve of his flannel shirt. The fabric was soft under her fingers, familiar. Please, she whispered, just let me stay in the cellar until the storm passes. I won't eat, I won't speak, I won't be a burden. Just don't throw me into the blizzard. Garrett looked down at her hand on his arm. His face twisted. Disgust. Pity. She couldn't tell which. He peeled her fingers off, one by one. You're not my mate anymore, he said. His voice was cold, distant, like he was talking to a stranger. Save your energy for the walk. He opened the door. The hallway beyond was warm. She could hear the sounds of the pack house. Laughter, the clatter of dishes. Someone was cooking roast beef for dinner. The smell drifted through the air, rich and savory. Life was continuing without her. Lysa walked out of the office on legs that felt like lead. She didn't go to their room, his room. She had nothing there that they would let her take anyway. She walked straight to the front doors of the pack house. Sarah was waiting. She stood by the entrance, one hand still resting on her pregnant belly. She was wearing a red wool scarf. Lysa's red wool scarf. The one her mother had knitted before she passed away 3 years ago. The last thing Lysa owned that had touched her mother's hands. Sarah smiled, soft, sad, false. I'm sorry, Lysa, she said. Her voice was gentle, practiced. I know this must be hard, but it's for the best. Some of us are meant to create life. Some are meant to wither. It's just nature. She reached up and adjusted the scarf around her neck. The gesture was deliberate, possessive. Lisa said nothing. There was nothing to say. She reached for the heavy oak doors and pushed them open. The wind hit her like a fist. It tore the breath from her lungs, stole the warmth from her skin in seconds. She was wearing a thin wool sweater, jeans, boots, but not the heavy winter kind. She had dressed for an indoor meeting, not exile. Behind her, she heard the heavy thud of the deadbolt sliding into place. Locked out. Locked out of the only home she had known since her mother died. The first hour was the hardest, not physically. Physically, she was still running on adrenaline. Rage. A white-hot fury that kept her blood pumping and her legs moving even though the snow was already knee-deep. She marched through the drifts, cursing under her breath. Cursing Garrett. Cursing Aldrin. Cursing the moon goddess for making her broken. I am not useless, she thought. Screamed it in her mind because the wind would steal the words if she spoke them aloud. I am Lysandra Thornfield. I matter. But the northern wilderness didn't care about internal monologues. By the second hour, the sun had vanished. Not set. Vanished. Swallowed by a wall of gray clouds so thick they turned the world into a monochrome nightmare. The temperature plummeted. Her jeans froze stiff against her legs, scraping her skin raw with every step. Her fingers were numb. She couldn't feel her nose. She tried to shift. It was the only way to survive this. If she could turn into her wolf, the thick fur would protect her. The animal instincts would guide her to shelter. She dropped to her hands and knees in the snow, closed her eyes, reached deep inside herself for the wolf that should have been there. Please, she begged, please, just this once, come out. Nothing, just a hollow silence where her wolf should have been. Her wolf had been dormant for years. Silent. Dr. Brennan had said it was a symptom of the barrenness, a defect in her biology. She was essentially human in a world of monsters. Fragile, soft, weak. By the third hour, the hallucinations started. The snow swirling around her began to take shapes, faces. She saw her mother standing by a pine tree, holding a mug of hot cocoa, steam rising into the frozen air. "Come here, Lisa," her mother called. Her voice was warm, loving. "It's safe by the fire." Lisa stumbled toward the tree, reached out with frozen hands. But when she got close, there was nothing. Just bark and ice. She fell face first into a drift. Getting up took 10 seconds, then 20, then a full minute. Her muscles were failing. Her body was shutting down, pulling all the remaining warmth inward to protect the vital organs. The shivering, which had been violent enough to rattle her teeth, suddenly stopped. That was the bad sign, the sign that the body was giving up, surrendering. She found a depression beneath the roots of a massive spruce tree. The ancient trunk had created a small pocket of shelter from the wind. It wasn't much, but it was something. Lisa curled into a ball, tucked her knees to her chest, wrapped her arms around herself. So this is it, she thought. Her mind was moving sluggishly now, thoughts thick and slow like syrup. Garrett is probably eating roast beef right now. Sarah is wearing my scarf. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just tired. So incredibly tired. She closed her eyes. The darkness was warm, inviting. Then she heard it, not the wind, something deeper, a vibration that traveled through the frozen ground beneath her cheek. Thump, 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 heavy paws, many of them. "Sector 4 is clear," a voice growled. Deep, rough, like gravel grinding together. "Wait," another voice said. This one was different, commanding, sharp. "I smell something, vanilla and despair." Lisa tried to open her eyes, but her lashes were frozen together. She let out a small whimper, a tiny sound that shouldn't have been audible over the howling wind. But he heard it. The crunching of snow came closer. Fast, urgent. She felt a massive presence block the wind. The biting cold vanished, replaced by a radiating heat so intense it felt like standing near a furnace. "She's alive," the commanding voice said. "Barely. Her heartbeat is thready." "Leave her, Alpha," the first voice urged. "She's a stray, probably an exile from Frostborn. If we take her, we risk a border dispute with Aldrin. It's not worth the trouble." Silence. Then a growl. Low, terrifying, possessive. "So, I don't care about Aldrin," the commanding voice said. "Look at her. She's been out here for hours without a coat, without shifting, and her heart is still beating. That's not a stray. That's a survivor." Hot hands touched her face. Human hands, scorching hot against her frozen skin. They brushed the ice from her cheeks with a gentleness that didn't match the roughness of the voice. "Open your eyes, little wolf," the voice commanded. It wasn't a request. It was an alpha command. Compelling. Absolute. Her body obeyed before her mind could process the order. Her eyelids fluttered. The world was blurry. Shapes, shadows, movement. And then she saw him. He was huge. Even kneeling in the snow, he towered over her, broad shoulders, a face carved from stone, dark hair plastered to his forehead with melting snow. And eyes, God, his eyes, glacier blue. So pale they were almost white. They glowed faintly in the darkness. He wasn't wearing a parka, just a black tactical shirt. Steam was rising off his shoulders. "Who?" Lisa croaked. Her voice was barely a rasp. "I am Cassian," he said, "of the Ravenshade Dominion." The name cut through her delirium like a knife. The Ravenshade Dominion, the kings of the north, the pack that made other packs kneel. Ruled by the Alpha King, a man rumored to have no heart, only ice in his chest. "You're the king," she whispered. "And you are freezing to death," Cassian said. He didn't wait for permission. Didn't ask if she wanted help. He simply scooped her up into his arms like she weighed nothing at all, pulled her against his chest. The contact was electric. Not metaphorically, literally. A jolt of energy snapped through her frozen veins, a spark that made her gasp, made her heart stutter and then pound harder than it had in hours. Cassian froze. His entire body went rigid. He looked down at her, those glacier eyes widening in shock. He felt it too. Alpha, the other man said. His voice was nervous now, uncertain. What is it? Cassian stared at Lysa. Really stared. Like he was seeing something he couldn't quite believe. He leaned down, inhaling deeply near the curve of her neck. His expression shifted. Pity melted into something else. Something intense. Predatory. Bewildered. She's not a stray, Cassian growled. His voice dropped an octave, rumbled through his chest. Prepare the transport. We're flying back to the Dominion immediately. Sir, the storm is too heavy to fly safely. I said fly, Cassian roared. The sound echoed through the trees. Primal, absolute. If she dies, heads will roll. Move. He pulled Lysa tighter against him, wrapped his own body around hers to shield her from the wind. His heat was overwhelming, almost painful after so long in the cold. But it was life. It was survival. As the darkness took her again, the last thing she felt was the thudding of his heart against her ear. Fast. Too fast for an alpha who was supposed to be made of ice. And for the first time in 3 years, the hollow ache in her chest flickered. Just a little. Just enough to notice. Waking up felt like drowning in reverse. First came the sound. A steady, rhythmic beep, beep, beep. Medical equipment, heart rate monitor. Then came the warmth. Not the scorching heat of Cassian's body, but a gentler warmth. Blankets, soft fabric, a fireplace crackling somewhere nearby. Then came the smell. Sandalwood, rain on stone, fresh linen, expensive, clean. Lysa opened her eyes. She was staring at a ceiling painted with a mural. The night sky. Constellations picked out in silver leaf and tiny crystals that caught the firelight. She turned her head slowly. Her neck was stiff. Her muscles ached. She was lying in a bed that was larger than her entire bedroom back at Frostbourne. The sheets were silk, charcoal gray. The mattress was so soft she felt like she was floating. A fire burned in a massive stone fireplace across the room. Heavy velvet curtains were drawn over tall windows. The furniture was dark wood, polished to a shine. A leather armchair sat in the corner, and in that armchair sat Cassian Ravenshade. He looked different than he had in the snow. Clean now, civilized. He wore a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle. His dark hair was still damp, pushed back from his face. Those glacier blue eyes were focused on a thick manila folder in his hands. He closed it the moment he saw she was awake. Easy, he said. His voice was softer now. Controlled. He stood and crossed the room in 3 strides. Moved with a speed and grace that was unnatural even for an alpha. Lysa tried to sit up. A wave of dizziness slammed her back down. Where? Her voice was raspy. Broken. There was a glass of water on the bedside table. Cassian was there before she could reach for it. He held the glass to her lips with one hand, supporting the back of her head with the other. His palm was warm, solid. Drink, he ordered. Gently, she drank. The water was cool and sweet. It soothed her raw throat. You're in the Ravenshade Dominion, Cassian said. He set the glass down carefully. In the east wing of the castle. My private quarters. Lysa choked on nothing. Your private quarters? She rasped. Wait, Cassian leaned against the bedside table, crossed his arms, studied her with those unsettling pale eyes. Because when I found you, your core temperature was 84 degrees, he said. You should have been dead. Dr. Blackthorne worked on you for 6 hours. But every time they tried to move you to the medical wing, your vitals dropped. When I stayed near you, they stabilized. He paused. Let that sink in. Do you know why that is, Lysandra Thornfield? She froze. He knew her name, her full name. How do you— I know everything, Cassian said. He picked up the folder from the table, tapped it with one long finger. I know you were mated to Garrett Ashridge of the Frostbourne Pack. I know you were annulled yesterday morning under Section 4 of their survival code. I know the reason cited was barrenness. Shame flooded through her, hot, prickly. She looked down at the silk sheets. So you know I'm defective, she whispered. Why save me? I'm useless to a king. Cassian let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't mocking. It was incredulous. Defective, he repeated. He moved closer, sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped under his weight. Lysandra, look at me. She didn't want to, but his alpha aura pushed against her mind, demanding, compelling. She looked up. Do you know what happened when I picked you up in the snow? He asked quietly. I felt a spark. A spark. Cassian shook his head. I felt a thunder crack. And when I brought you here, Dr. Blackthorne ran a full medical panel, not the basic garbage they do at Frostbourne, a deep genomic analysis. He reached out and took her hand. His thumb traced the veins in her wrist. The touch sent electricity skittering up her arm. "You aren't Barren, Lysandra," he said. His voice was intense, certain. "You never were." Her heart skipped a beat. "What? But 3 years, no pups." The tests were manipulated, Cassian said. His voice turned dark, dangerous. Or they were looking for the wrong thing. "You see, you have a rare blood marker. It's called the lunar blessing. It's ancient. It means your body rejects standard pregnancies because your biology is waiting." Waiting for what? Cassian's eyes flared with gold, the sign of his wolf surfacing. "For your true mate." The words hung in the air. Heavy, impossible. Lisa pulled her hand away, shook her head. No, I was married. I loved Garrett. If I had a true mate, I would have known." "Would you?" Cassian asked. "Or were you so convinced you were broken that you never questioned why your wolf went silent? Why you couldn't shift? Why you felt hollow inside?" She stared at him. Her mind was racing, spinning. "My wolf isn't silent," she whispered. "She's dead. The doctors said—" "The doctors were wrong," Cassian interrupted. He stood up, paced to the window, pulled back the curtain to reveal a sprawling city of glass and steel nestled in the mountains. His kingdom. "Your wolf isn't dead, Lysandra. She's in hibernation, preserving her energy." "Why would she do that?" He turned back to her. His face was hard, cold fury carved into every line. "Because she was being poisoned." The room tilted. "Poisoned?" Lisa's voice cracked. "That's impossible. Who would poison me?" "That," Cassian said, "is what we are going to find out." He walked back to the bed, sat down again. Closer this time. "My spies are already en route to Frostbourne," he said. "But there is something else you need to know." He reached for her hand again. This time she didn't pull away. "The lunar blessing bloodline is compatible with only one other bloodline," he said. His glacier eyes locked onto hers. "The royal line." Lisa's breath caught. "You weren't getting pregnant with Garrett because your body knew he wasn't your match," Cassian continued. "Your biology was waiting for the right partner." "Who?" she whispered, but she already knew. Felt it in the way her heart raced when he was near, in the electric spark that had passed between them. Cassian leaned in, close enough that she could see flecks of silver in his pale eyes, could smell cedar and rain, and something uniquely him. "Me," he said. "You are my mate, Lysandra." The recovery was not a gentle fade-out into sleep and soft music. It was a brutal, agonizing week of withdrawal, Doctor. Matthias Blackthorne was a small man with wire-rimmed glasses and hands that smelled of antiseptic and herbs. He looked more like a librarian than a werewolf healer. But when he walked into the room 3 days after Lysa woke, the look on his face was primal fury. Cassian was there, of course. He hadn't left. He had moved his entire office into the bedroom, running the Northern Territory from a laptop while sitting 6 feet away from her bed. He claimed it was for security. But every time she whimpered in her sleep, he was at her bedside in a heartbeat. "Tell us," Cassian commanded. His voice was low, controlled, but his knuckles were white where they gripped the armrest of his chair. Dr. Blackthorne placed a plastic bag on the bed. Inside was a small tin canister. The label was handwritten in elegant script. "Fertility blend. For Lysa, with love." Lysa recognized it immediately. Her chest went tight. "Where did you get that?" she asked. Her voice trembled. "One of my field agents retrieved it from your quarters in Frostbourne," Keshin said. He didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the canister like it was a snake. "Before the sanitation crews came through." "It's mostly chamomile and raspberry leaf," Dr. Blackthorne said. His voice was tight, professional, barely containing rage. "But the leaves were soaked in a solution before being dried. A concentrated herbal contraceptive. Long-term use suppresses ovulation, thins the uterine lining, and disrupts hormonal balance." Lisa stared at the bag. The tin looked so innocent, so harmless. "Who gave this to you?" Cassian asked quietly. She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed. Because she knew, God help her. She knew. "Sarah," she finally whispered. "My cousin. She ordered it from a specialist in the city. Made it for me every morning for 2 years. Told me to drink it all, for the baby." Silence filled the room. Then Cassian stood. The movement was slow, controlled, lethal. "Seraphina Thornfield," he said. Each word was precise, clipped. "Your cousin poisoned you for 2 years to make you infertile." Lisa felt the bile rise in her throat. Wait, she choked out. Why would she do that? Power, Cassian said. He walked to the window. His silhouette was dark against the snowy mountains. The beta line in Frostborn is weak. Garrett needed a strong heir to secure his position. Serafina wanted to be the beta female, but as long as you were there, she was just a cousin. She needed you gone. He turned. His eyes were burning. She couldn't murder you outright without an investigation, so she made you defective. Let the pack laws do the work for her. Lisa thought of Sarah's smile, the way she had adjusted the red scarf around her neck, the way she had said, "It's just nature." Did he know? Lisa asked. Her voice broke. Did Garrett know? Cassian's expression softened, just slightly. We're verifying that now, he said. But I need you to hear me, Lysandra. He crossed back to the bed, knelt down so they were eye level. Frostborn is a failing territory. Their timber exports are down. Their reputation is damaged. They rely on subsidies from the Ravenshade Dominion to survive the winter. They think they cast out a burden. He reached up and cupped her face in his hands. His palms were warm, steady. They don't realize they cast out their lifeline. Over the next 4 days, the treatments were brutal. Dr. Blackthorne had to flush her system, clear out the residual contraceptive compounds that had built up in her tissues. It felt like fire in her veins. She screamed, thrashed, broke the rails of the bed. And through it all, Cassian held her. He didn't restrain her. He grounded her, absorbed her pain through the bond that was forming between them. When she sweated, he wiped her brow. When she cried for her mother, he whispered stories of the ancient wolves until she fell back asleep. On the 7th day, the fever broke. Lisa woke, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel the heavy, wet blanket of fatigue. She felt light, electric, alive. She sat up. The movement was fluid, easy. She looked at her hands. The pale, sickly tone was gone. Her skin was flushed, healthy. Her fingernails looked stronger. And inside her chest, the hollow silence was gone. Finally, a voice growled in her head. Deep, feminine, ancient. I thought we were going to sleep forever. Lisa gasped. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Her wolf, she was back. Cassian stirred in the chair. His eyes opened, focused on her immediately. Lisa? She looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time, she understood what the spark had meant, what the thundercrack had been. She's here, Lisa whispered. My wolf, she's back. Cassian's face transformed. The cold, controlled mask shattered. What remained was raw relief. Joy. He stood, crossed to the bed, sat on the edge. The contraceptive is gone, he said softly. You're healing. I feel, she searched for the word, different. You look different, Cassian said. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Stronger. She met his eyes, those impossible glacier blue eyes. You saved my life, she said. No, Cassian corrected. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. You saved your own life. You survived that blizzard. You survived 3 years of poison. You are stronger than you know, Lysandra Thornfield. He paused, hesitated, then spoke the words that would change everything. And you're not alone anymore. That night, Dr. Blackthorne ran one final blood panel, standard procedure to confirm the contraceptive compounds were fully cleared. He came back 2 hours later, pale, shaking. Cassian and Lisa were in the sitting room adjoining the bedroom. She was drinking tea, real tea, no poison, just chamomile and honey. Cassian was reading reports on his laptop. Alpha, Matthias said. His voice was unsteady. I need to speak with you. Both of you. Cassian closed the laptop, stood. His entire body went tense. What is it? Matthias looked at Lisa. His expression was complicated. Shock, awe, concern. Miss Thornfield, he said carefully. When is the last time you were intimate with your former mate? Lisa blinked. Heat flooded her cheeks. I don't see how that's relevant. Please, Matthias pressed. It's important. She swallowed hard, thought back. The months before the exile had been strained, distant. Garrett had stopped touching her, stopped looking at her. 9 months ago, she said quietly. Maybe 10. We hadn't. Not since the last failed cycle. Matthias nodded slowly. He pulled a paper from the folder he was carrying, handed it to Cassian. The Alphaking's face went completely still, unreadable. What is it? Lisa asked. Fear crept into her voice. Cassian looked up, met her eyes. You're pregnant, he said. The room spun. What? 6 weeks. Matthias said. His voice was gentle, professional. That's why you survived the blizzard, Miss Thornfield. Your body was protecting something. A mother's will is stronger than death. Lysa couldn't breathe, couldn't think. But that's impossible, she whispered. I'm barren. The tests were lies, Cassian said. He set the paper down carefully, walked toward her. You were never barren. You were poisoned to be infertile. And now that the poison is gone, he knelt in front of her chair, took her hands in his. You're going to be a mother. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She didn't know if they were bond or fear, boy, or both. But the baby, where? Garrett's baby. No, Matthias interrupted. His voice was firm. The lunar blessing bloodline only conceives with a true mate. The timing doesn't match Garrett, Ms. Thornfield. Lysa looked at Cassian, confused, lost. Then who? And Cassian's expression changed. Something flickered in his eyes. A memory, realization. 9 months ago, he said slowly, there was a border summit, trade negotiations between territories. I represented Ravenshade. Frostborn sent a delegation. Lisa's breath caught because she remembered. A crowded hall. Political speeches. She had been there as Garrett's mate, required attendance. But Garrett had ignored her all evening, talked business, left her standing alone by the refreshment table. And then a stranger had approached. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes like glaciers. You look lonely, the stranger had said. Kind, genuine. They had talked for hours, about books, about loneliness, about feeling invisible in a room full of people. And when the evening ended, when everyone else had returned to their quarters, they had walked in the gardens. One kiss, one perfect, impossible kiss under the stars. She had returned to her room, to Garrett, buried the memory under guilt and shame. It was you, Lysa whispered. That night, the stranger who was kind. Cassian nodded. His eyes were bright. I searched for you afterward, he said, but I only knew your first name. And when I finally found the roster, I saw you were mated. I thought I had imagined the connection, the pull. He cupped her face in his hands. But the bond doesn't lie, Lysandra. This child is ours. She should have been terrified, should have been overwhelmed, but instead she felt something click into place. Something that had been broken for so long suddenly made whole. We're having a baby, she said. The words felt surreal. We're having a baby, Cassian confirmed, and for the first time since she had met him, he smiled, really smiled. It transformed his entire face, made him look younger, happier. What do we do now? Lysa asked. Cassian stood, pulled her to her feet, held her against his chest. Now, he said, we prepare, because in 8 months you are going to be a mother, and I'm going to make sure the people who tried to destroy you watch you rise. Time, Lysandra learned, was not measured in hours or days when you were rebuilding a life from ashes. It was measured in heartbeats, in small victories, in moments when you looked in the mirror and recognized the woman staring back. February came soft and cold to the Ravenshade Dominion. The snow that had tried to kill her in November now fell gentle outside the castle windows. Pretty, almost peaceful. She watched it sometimes, marveling at how something so deadly could look so beautiful when you were safe and warm. The library became her sanctuary. It was massive. 3 stories of floor-to-ceiling shelves carved from dark wood that smelled of vanilla and old paper. Ladders on brass rails. Windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, letting in pale winter light. Cassian had given her access to everything. Ancient pack histories, medical texts, literature, poetry. Use it however you want, he had said on the first day she was strong enough to leave the bedroom. This is your home now, Lysandra, not a prison. She had started organizing. Not because anyone asked her to, but because it was what she knew how to do, what she was good at. The archives had been maintained well, but not perfectly. She found gaps, inconsistencies, books misfiled or damaged by time. She fixed them, cataloging as she worked, bringing order to the beautiful chaos. It gave her purpose, gave her something to do with her hands, while her body did the incredible work of growing a child. At 10 weeks, she barely showed, just a slight roundness to her lower abdomen that could have been mistaken for weight gain. But she felt it, felt the changes happening inside her, the subtle shifts, the way her sense of smell had sharpened, the way certain foods that she used to love now made her nauseous. Dr. Blackthorne monitored her closely, weekly checkups, blood panels, ultrasounds. Strong heartbeat, he would say, adjusting the wand on her belly, growing perfectly. And Cassian would be there, always there, standing beside the examination table with his arms crossed, watching the screen like it held the secrets of the universe. "That's our daughter," he would say afterward, his voice filled with wonder. Lisa didn't ask how he knew it was a girl. Alpha sometimes just knew. Instinct, biology, magic. Whatever it was, she believed him. The castle staff treated her with cautious respect. Not as a prisoner, not as a guest. Something in between. They called her Miss Thornfield, brought her meals, asked if she needed anything, but they kept their distance. She understood. She was carrying the Alpha King's child, but she wasn't his mate, not officially, not publicly. She was a complication, a question mark in the hierarchy. Only Cassian treated her like she belonged. He visited the library every afternoon, like clockwork. 3 o'clock, he would arrive with 2 cups of tea, herbal for her, black for him, and settle into the leather chair by the window. At first, they didn't talk much. He would read reports, she would catalog books, comfortable silence. But slowly, gradually, the silence filled with words. "What are you reading?" he asked one day in late February. Snow was falling outside, thick flakes that stuck to the windows. Lisa looked up from the ancient tome spread across her lap. "A history of the northern packs, pre-alliance era. It's fascinating. Did you know that the territories used to be matriarchal? Female alphas ruled most of the major packs until the—" She stopped, realized she was rambling. "Sorry, I'm boring you." "You're not," Cassian said. He set down his tablet, leaned forward. "Tell me more." So she did. She told him about the lunar queens, about pack structures built around maternal lines, about how the shift to patriarchal rule had happened gradually, over centuries, as resources became scarce and physical strength was valued over wisdom. Cassian listened, really listened, asked questions, challenged her interpretations in ways that made her think harder, dig deeper. It became their routine. 3 o'clock tea, conversations that started with books and wandered into philosophy, politics, life. "Why did you never remarry?" Lisa asked one day in early March. She was 12 weeks along now. The morning sickness had finally eased. She felt more like herself. Cassian was quiet for a long moment, his glacier eyes fixed on the snow beyond the window. "I did marry," he said finally. "Once. Her name was Elena. She died in childbirth 5 years ago. The baby didn't survive either." Lisa's heart clenched. "I'm so sorry." "It broke something in me," Cassian continued. His voice was distant, careful, like he was picking his way through a minefield of old pain. "The council wanted me to remarry immediately, produce an heir, secure the line. But I couldn't. I told myself it was grief, that I needed time." He looked at her then, really looked at her. "But the truth was, I was terrified. Terrified of bonding with someone and losing them again. So I waited, made excuses, turned down every candidate they presented. 47 women over 10 years. 47, Lisa repeated. She couldn't imagine, couldn't fathom that kind of pressure. "And then I met you at that summit," Cassian said. "One conversation in a garden, one kiss. And I knew you were different, that what I felt was real." He paused. "I searched for you afterward. But when I found out you were mated, I thought I had lost you before I ever really had you." Lisa reached across the space between them, took his hand, his fingers closed around hers, warm, strong. "You didn't lose me," she said softly. "I'm here." "You are," Cassian agreed. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "And I am grateful for that every single day." They sat like that for a long time, holding hands, watching the snow fall. And Lisa felt something shift inside her chest. Not the baby, something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. By April, the snow had begun to retreat. The gardens around the castle came alive with early spring flowers. Crocuses, snowdrops, delicate purple blooms that pushed through the last patches of ice. Lisa was 4 months pregnant, showing now, undeniably, visibly pregnant. Her sweaters had gotten tight. Dr. Blackthorne had ordered maternity clothes, which arrived in beautiful packages tied with silk ribbons. She stood in front of the mirror in her room, wearing one of the new dresses, soft gray fabric that draped over her growing belly. She looked different, not just physically. There was color in her cheeks, light in her eyes. She looked alive. "You're beautiful." She turned. Cassian stood in the doorway. He had a key to her suite, but he always knocked, always waited for permission. Even now, months later, he respected her boundaries. "I look like I swallowed a melon," Lisa said. but she was smiling. You look like a mother, Cassian corrected. He crossed the room, stopped in front of her. May I? She nodded. He placed his hand on her belly, gentle, reverent. The baby kicked. A strong, definite thump against his palm. Cassian's eyes widened, his face transformed. Pure joy. She's strong, he whispered. Like her father, Lysa said. They stood like that, his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter move. And Lysa realized that this quiet moment, was more intimate than anything she had ever experienced with Garrett. This was partnership. This was real. I want to show you something, Cassian said. He pulled back, offered his hand. If you're feeling up to it. What is it? A surprise. He led her through the castle, down corridors she had never explored, past rooms she had never entered. Finally, he stopped in front of a set of double doors carved with intricate designs, moons and stars and wolves running through forests. Close your eyes, he said. Lysa obeyed, felt him take her hand, heard the doors open. Okay, look. She opened her eyes and gasped. It was a nursery, but not just any nursery. The walls were painted with murals, forests and mountains and night skies. A mobile hung from the ceiling, stars and moons carved from crystal that caught the light and scattered rainbows across the room. There was a crib made of dark wood, a rocking chair by the window, shelves already stocked with books. Cassian, she breathed. This is too much, he asked. He sounded uncertain, vulnerable. I know we haven't talked about what happens after she's born, where you'll live, what you'll want, but I hoped. Lysa turned and kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't thought through. She just reached up, grabbed the front of his shirt, and pulled him down to her level. The kiss was soft, sweet, and when she pulled back, Cassian was staring at her with those glacier eyes full of wonder. It's perfect, she said. Thank you. He cupped her face in his hands, rested his forehead against hers. I know you're still healing, he said quietly. I know you're not ready for more, and I won't push, but I need you to know I'm not going anywhere, Lysandra. I'm here, for you, for her, for as long as you'll have me. And Lysa realized, standing in that beautiful nursery with this man who had saved her life and asked for nothing in return, that she was falling in love. Not the desperate, clinging love she had felt for Garrett, not the love born of loneliness and fear. This was different. This was a love built on respect, on partnership, on quiet moments and shared dreams. This was real. May arrived warm and bright. The castle gardens exploded into color. Roses and peonies and flowering trees that filled the air with sweetness. Lysa was 5 months pregnant. Her belly had rounded significantly. She moved slower now, more carefully. The baby was active, kicking and rolling at all hours. She was in the library cataloging a new shipment of medical texts when Dr. Blackthorne appeared in the doorway. His face was pale, serious. Ms. Thornfield, he said, I need you to come with me. The Alpha has requested your presence in his office. Fear spiked through her. Is something wrong? The baby is fine, Matthias assured her. This is about something else. Cassian's office was on the top floor of the castle. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the mountains. His desk was massive, dark wood, maps and reports spread across the surface. He stood when she entered. His expression was carefully neutral. Sit, he said, gestured to the chair across from his desk. Lysa sat, her heart was pounding. What's wrong? Cassian exchanged a look with Dr. Blackthorne. Then he picked up a folder from his desk, set it in front of her. We ran a DNA test, he said, on the baby, standard procedure for royal pregnancies, to confirm bloodline, health markers, genetic compatibility. Lysa's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were pages of medical jargon, charts, graphs. But one section was highlighted in yellow. Paternal markers, 99.9% match to Cassian Ravenshade, Alphaking of the Northern Dominion. She stared at the words. Read them twice. 3 times. I don't understand, she whispered. How? We haven't. The timeline confused us too, Dr. Blackthorne said gently. Until we ran a deeper analysis, Ms. Thornfield. When is the last time you were intimate with anyone? She felt her cheeks burn. 9 months ago, maybe 10, at the border summit. She looked at Cassian. I thought it was a dream or guilt. I tried to forget. Cassian moved around the desk, knelt in front of her chair. Tell me what you remember, he said softly. Lysa closed her eyes, let the memory surface. The summit had been boring. political. Garrett had brought her as a show of status, then ignored her all night. She had stood by the refreshment table, invisible, while he networked and schmoozed. And then the stranger approached. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes like ice. "You look lonely," he had said. They talked, for hours, about everything and nothing. And when the formal dinner ended, when everyone else retreated to their quarters, he had asked if she wanted to walk in the gardens. The night air had been cool. Stars brilliant overhead. They walked along paths lined with roses, talked about books, about feeling invisible, about the weight of expectations. "I'm in a marriage that feels like a prison," she had confessed. The wine had loosened her tongue. "I love him, or I think I do, but he doesn't see me anymore. I'm just a failure, a disappointment." The stranger had stopped walking, turned to face her. "You are not a failure," he had said, fierce, certain. "You are brilliant. I've watched you tonight. The way you observe, the way you think. Anyone who can't see that is a fool." She had started crying, couldn't help it. And he had pulled her into his arms, held her while she shook. "I don't even know your name," she had whispered against his chest. "Cassian," he had said, and then he had kissed her. It was supposed to be comfort, just a moment of kindness, but it had ignited something, a spark, a fire. They had stumbled into an alcove, hidden by climbing roses, and there, under the stars, they had come together. Desperate, tender, perfect. Afterwards, she had panicked, fled back to her room, crawled into bed beside Garrett, who hadn't even noticed she was gone. She had buried the memory, convinced herself it was wrong, a mistake. But her body had remembered, her biology had known. "It was you," Lysa said now, opening her eyes. Cassian was still kneeling in front of her. "That night, in the gardens, it was you." "It was me," Cassian confirmed. "I searched for you afterward. Spent weeks trying to find the woman from Frostborn Pack with amber eyes and honey hair. But when I finally identified you from the delegation roster, I saw you were mated. I thought," he swallowed hard, "I thought I had ruined your marriage, crossed a line I couldn't uncross. So I stayed away." Tears spilled down Lisa's cheeks. "I tried to forget," she whispered. "I thought I was being disloyal. But I couldn't stop thinking about you, about how you made me feel seen." Cassian reached up, wiped her tears with his thumb. "The lunar blessing doesn't lie, Doctor," Blackthorn said quietly from where he stood by the door. "Your biology recognized him as your true mate. That's why the pregnancy took. That's why your body waited all those years with Garrett." Lysa looked at the DNA report again, at the proof in black and white. "We're really having a baby," she said. "Together." "We're really having a baby," Cassian confirmed. His voice was thick with emotion. "A daughter, ours." He stood, pulled her gently to her feet, and wrapped his arms around her, held her close, careful of her belly. And Lysa felt the last piece of her broken heart click into place. June brought heat. The mountains shimmered in the distance. The gardens buzzed with bees and butterflies. Lysa was 6 months pregnant now. Her belly was round and firm. The baby moved constantly, kicking and stretching. She was in the nursery, folding tiny clothes, when Cassian appeared in the doorway. "We have a visitor," he said. His voice was tight, controlled. Lisa looked up. "Who?" "Garrett Ashridge." The world tilted. "What?" "He's at the front gate," Cassian said, "asking for an audience. I can send him away. You don't have to see him." Lisa set down the tiny onesie she was holding. Her hands were shaking. "No," she said quietly. "I'll see him." Cassian's jaw tightened. "Are you sure?" "I need to," Lysa said. "I need closure." They met in one of the castle's formal sitting rooms, neutral territory. Cassian insisted on being present, standing by the window like a sentinel. Dr. Blackthorn was there too. Witness? Protection. Garrett looked terrible. He had lost weight. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His clothes were rumpled. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. When he saw Lysa, saw her belly, he stopped in the doorway, stared. "Lysa," he breathed. "You're pregnant," she finished. She sat in a high-backed chair, hands resting on her belly, calm, centered. 6 months. Garrett's face went white. He did the math, realized. "It's not mine." "No," Lysa said simply. "It's not." He stumbled to a chair, sat heavily. "I came to apologize," he said, his voice cracked. "I came to tell you I was wrong, that I should have fought for you, should have questioned the tests, should have protected you." "Why now?" Lysa asked. No anger, just curiosity. Garrett pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket, smoothed it on his knee. I found this in Sarah's things, he said, a receipt from an herbalist in the city for contraceptive compounds dated 2 years ago. He looked up. His eyes were red. I confronted her. She broke down, confessed everything, the tea, the manipulation, Aldrin's involvement, all of it. Lisa felt Cassian tense behind her, felt the rage radiating off him in waves. "And," she asked quietly. "And she's sick," Garrett said. "The pregnancy, it's not going well. Complications. The healers say it's karma, that her body is rejecting the pups because they were conceived in betrayal." He laughed, bitter, broken. "I thought I was doing the right thing. Thought I was choosing strength, security, but I was just choosing cruelty." "Yes," Lisa said, "you were." Garrett flinched. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "I don't deserve it, but I needed you to know. I didn't know about the poison. I swear on my life. If I had known, would you have stopped it?" Lisa interrupted. Her voice was calm, steady. "Honestly, Garrett, if you had known, would you have chosen me over her?" Silence. The answer was in his eyes, in the way he looked down, ashamed. "I don't know," he admitted. Lisa nodded. "At least you're honest." She stood, smoothed her hands over her dress. "Thank you for coming," she said, "for telling me. But I can't give you absolution, Garrett. I'm not that person anymore." "I know," he said. I wanted you to know I was sorry, that I see it now, what I threw away." He stood too, looked at Cassian. "Take care of her," he said. "She deserves someone who will." "I intend to," Cassian said. His voice was ice. Garrett nodded, turned to leave. But at the door, he paused. "For what it's worth," he said, looking back at Lisa, "I'm glad you survived. I'm glad you found someone who sees what I was too blind to see." Then he was gone. Lisa stood very still, processing, breathing. Then she felt Cassian's arms around her, holding her up. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. "Yes," she said, and she meant it. "I'm free." That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony of her suite, wrapped in a shawl, watching the stars. The door opened behind her. Cassian. He always seemed to know when she needed him. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Too much thinking," she admitted. He came to stand beside her, leaned against the railing. The moonlight turned his dark hair silver. "What are you thinking about?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she placed her hand on her belly, felt the baby move. "I was thinking about her," she said, "about what kind of world she's going to grow up in, what kind of mother I'm going to be." "You're going to be an amazing mother," Cassian said. "How do you know?" "Because you're already protecting her, already thinking about her future, already putting her first." Lisa looked at him. This man who had saved her, sheltered her, asked for nothing in return. "Cassian," she said, "I need to tell you something." He turned to face her, patient, waiting. "I'm falling in love with you," she said. The words came out in a rush, and it terrifies me, because the last time I loved someone, they destroyed me. But when I'm with you, I feel safe, I feel seen, and I don't know what to do with that. Cassian reached out, took her hand. "You don't have to do anything," he said gently. "Love isn't a debt, Lysandra. It's not something you owe me. Whatever you feel, whatever you need, I'm here." "What if I'm not ready?" she whispered. "What if I'm too broken?" "Then we take our time," Cassian said. "We build slowly. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be waiting." Lisa felt tears slip down her cheeks, but they weren't sad tears. They were relief, release. "Ask me," she said. "Ask you what?" "Ask me to be yours, officially, publicly. Ask me to be your mate." Cassian's eyes widened. "Lisa, I know it's fast," she interrupted. "I know I'm still healing, but I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want our daughter to grow up wondering if she was a mistake. I want her to know she was wanted, chosen, loved." She placed her hand over his heart, felt it pounding. "Ask me," she repeated. Cassian took both her hands, knelt down on one knee on the balcony. "Lysandra Thornfield," he said. His voice was rough with emotion. "Will you be my mate, my partner, my queen? Will you help me build a kingdom where our daughter can grow up safe and loved? Where you can be free?" Lisa pulled him to his feet, cupped his face in her hands. "Yes," she said. "To all of it, yes." He kissed her then, deep and slow and perfect. And when the baby kicked between them, they both laughed through their tears. "She approves," Cassian said. "Then it's settled," Lisa replied. They stood on the balcony, holding each other, making plans. They would announce it publicly at the Midsummer Assembly, the annual gathering where all the northern packs came together. Frostborn would be there. Sarah, Aldrin, all of them would see that she hadn't just survived. She had thrived. "Are you scared?" Cassian asked as they finally headed back inside. Terrified, Lysa admitted, but also ready, because she wasn't the woman they had thrown into the blizzard anymore. She was stronger now, whole, healed. She was going to be a mother, a queen, a survivor, and she was going to make damn sure they all knew it. July arrived in a blaze of heat and golden light, the kind of summer that made the mountains shimmer in the distance like something out of a dream. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows in waves of purple and yellow. The air smelled of pine and honeysuckle and possibility. Lysandra stood in front of the mirror in her chambers, staring at a woman she barely recognized. 8 months pregnant. Her belly was enormous now, stretched tight over the life growing inside her. The baby, their daughter, was active and strong, kicking and rolling with an energy that sometimes took Lysa's breath away. She placed her hand over a particularly vigorous movement and felt a tiny foot press back against her palm. "Good morning to you too, little one," she whispered. The dress Cassian had commissioned for her was a masterpiece. Flowing silk in a deep midnight blue that made her amber eyes look like molten gold. The fabric draped over her belly in elegant folds, celebrating rather than hiding her pregnancy. Silver thread had been embroidered along the neckline and sleeves in patterns that mimicked constellations. Around her neck hung her mother's necklace, a simple pendant of moonstone set in silver. It had been recovered from her old quarters in Frostborn by one of Cassian's agents, returned to her with a note that simply said, "This belongs to you." She touched it now, felt the cool stone against her fingertips. "I wish you were here, Mama," she said softly to her reflection. "I wish you could meet her, your granddaughter." A knock at the door. "Come in," Lisa called. Cassian entered. He was dressed in formal attire, black suit tailored perfectly to his broad shoulders, silver accents that caught the light. His dark hair was swept back from his face, revealing those striking glacier blue eyes that still made her heart skip. But it was the expression on his face that made her breath catch. Wonder, pure, unfiltered wonder. "You look like a queen," he said. "I look like a woman who swallowed a watermelon," Lysa replied, but she was smiling. Cassian crossed the room, took her hands in his. "You look like my mate," he corrected, "like the mother of my child, like the strongest person I've ever known." He leaned down and kissed her, soft, tender, then placed both hands on her belly. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. The Midsummer Assembly, the annual gathering where all the northern packs came together to discuss territory, trade, politics. It was the biggest event of the year. Hundreds of wolves, dozens of alphas. And today, for the first time in 5 years, Cassian would present his mate, and Frostborn would be there. Lysa took a deep breath, let it out slowly. "I'm ready," she said. The grand hall of the Ravenshade Dominion was a monument to power. Vaulted ceilings that soared 50 feet high, massive windows that let in floods of golden afternoon light. The walls were dark stone, hung with banners representing every pack in the Northern Alliance. Black and silver dominated, but splashes of color marked the visiting delegations. Crimson, emerald, sapphire. The floor was polished obsidian, so smooth it reflected like a dark mirror. Lisa stood in an antechamber off the main hall, watching through a crack in the door as the guests arrived. Her heart was pounding, not from fear, from anticipation. She saw Alpha Kellen of the Riverside Pack, a jovial man with a booming laugh and kind eyes. She saw the representatives from the Eastern Mountains, the coastal territories, the Plains Confederation. Wolves in formal dress, mingling, talking, laughing. And then she saw them. The Frostborn delegation, Alpha Aldrin. Frostborn looked smaller than she remembered. Older. His silver hair seemed grayer, his shoulders hunched. He wore a suit that hung loose on his frame as if he'd lost significant weight. His face was drawn, tired. Beside him walked Garrett. Her former husband looked haunted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His jaw was covered in stubble. He moved like a man carrying a great weight, and clinging to his arm was Seraphina. Lysa's breath caught. Sarah was visibly pregnant, 7 months, maybe 8. But where Lysa glowed with health, Sarah looked ill. Her skin was sallow, yellow undertones that spoke of liver stress. Her hair, usually so lustrous, hung limp around her face. Her hands trembled where they gripped Garrett's sleeve. She was wearing a dress of emerald green. Expensive, well-made. But even the fine fabric couldn't hide how sick she looked, and around her neck was the red wool scarf. Lysa's mother's scarf. The sight of it sent a bolt of cold fury through Lysa's chest. But it was different from the rage she'd felt months ago. This was colder, more controlled. This was the anger of a woman who had survived and learned to wield her pain like a weapon. "It's time," Cassian said beside her. He offered his arm. "Are you ready?" Lisa took one last look at the Frostborn delegation, at the people who had cast her out to die. Then she turned to Cassian and placed her hand on his arm. "Let's remind them what a mistake looks like," she said. The music stopped the moment Cassian entered the hall. Every conversation died. Every head turned. The assembly had been waiting for this. The Alpha King had called this gathering specifically to make an announcement. Speculation had been running wild for weeks. Cassian walked to the center of the hall, alone. His presence commanded the space. Every eye was on him. "Welcome," he said. His voice carried effortlessly through the vast room. "Thank you all for attending the Midsummer Assembly. We have much to discuss. Territory agreements, trade routes, the upcoming harvest." He paused. Let the anticipation build. "But first, I have an announcement, a personal one." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lysa watched from the shadows of the antechamber, saw the way people leaned forward, eager, curious. In the Frostborn delegation, Aldrin stood rigid. Garrett's face had gone pale. Sarah swayed slightly, steadied by Garrett's hand. "For 5 years," Cassian continued, "I have ruled alone. The council has pressured me to remarry, to produce an heir, to secure the royal line. I resisted. I made excuses. I waited." He turned toward the antechamber, looked directly at where Lisa stood hidden. "I waited because I was searching for something rare, something precious, a mate worthy of standing beside me. A woman of strength, intelligence, and courage. A woman who could survive what would destroy most people and emerge not broken but forged into something stronger." He extended his hand. "Come, my love." Lisa stepped out of the shadows. The collective gasp was audible, like the entire hall had inhaled at once. She walked forward slowly, not because she was nervous, but because she wanted them to see, wanted them to take in every detail. The elegant dress, the healthy glow, the enormous, unmistakable swell of her pregnant belly. Whispers erupted, shocked, confused, disbelieving. But from the Frostborn delegation, there was only silence. Stunned, horrified silence. Lysa reached Cassian, took his hand, let him pull her close. "I present to you," Cassian announced, his voice ringing with pride and power, "Lysandra Ravenshade, my true mate, the mother of my child, and your new queen." The hall erupted, some in applause, others in shocked exclamation. But the loudest sound came from Frostborn. "No," Sarah whispered, but in the acoustics of the hall the word carried. "That's impossible. She's dead." Lisa turned, met her cousin's eyes across the distance. "Hello, Serafina," she said. Her voice was calm, clear. "I'm very much alive." Sarah's face crumpled. She grabbed Garrett's arm, her nails digging into the fabric of his sleeve. "It's a ghost," she hissed. "She's haunting us." "She's not a ghost," Garrett said. His voice was hollow. He stared at Lisa like a man seeing his worst mistake given flesh and blood and consequence. "She's real." Aldrin stepped forward. His face was red, fury and fear warring in his expression. "This is an outrage," Vinny said. "That woman was cast out legally under pack law. She was barren, defective. The Frostborn pack exercised our right to murder her," Cassian interrupted. His voice was ice, absolute zero. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You cast out a pregnant woman into a blizzard at 35 below. You sentenced her to death." "She wasn't pregnant when we," Aldrin started. "She was 6 weeks pregnant," Cassian said. Each word was precise, sharp as a blade. "But you wouldn't have known that, because your pack healer was too incompetent, or too corrupt, to run a proper test." He stepped forward, power radiated off him in waves. Every wolf in the room felt it, the absolute authority of an alpha who would not be challenged. "But that's not the worst of it, is it, Aldrin?" Cassian continued. "Shall we discuss why Lysandra appeared to be infertile? Shall we talk about the herbal contraceptives that were given to her daily for 2 years? Shall we discuss who paid for them?" The color drained from Aldrin's face. Around the hall, shocked murmurs grew louder. Alphas and delegates began to understand, began to piece together the implications. "I have evidence," Cassian said. He gestured to Dr. Blackthorne, who stepped forward, carrying a folder. Medical reports, receipts, testimony from the herbalist who sold the compounds, and written orders. He opened the folder, held up a piece of paper. Signed by you, Alpha Frostborn. This is slander, Aldrin snarled, but his voice shook. This is justice, Cassian corrected. Lisa stepped forward. All eyes turned to her. She placed her hand on her belly, felt her daughter move beneath her palm. I stood in your office 8 months ago, she said. Her voice was steady, strong. You called me barren, useless, a drain on the pack. You sent me into a blizzard to die. She looked at Sarah. Her cousin had tears streaming down her face. And you, Lisa continued, you poisoned me for 2 years. You fed me herbal contraceptives disguised as fertility treatments. You smiled while you destroyed my body's ability to conceive. All so you could take my husband, take my place. I didn't mean to hurt you, Sarah sobbed. I just wanted what I had, Lisa finished. My husband, my home, my life. She took a breath, let the hall sit in silence for a moment. But here's what you didn't understand, she said. You didn't destroy me. You freed me, because I wasn't barren. I was just waiting for the right man. She looked at Cassian, felt the bond between them pulse with warmth and certainty. And now I'm going to be a mother, a queen. Everything you tried to take from me, I have found again. But better, stronger, real. The hall was silent. Every person watching, witnessing. The question now, Cassian said, is what justice looks like. He turned to face the assembled alphas. I call for a tribunal. Under the laws of the Northern Alliance, I charge Alpha Aldrin Frostborn with attempted murder, conspiracy, and violation of pack law. I charge Serafina Thornfield with poisoning, conspiracy, and attempted murder. And what of Garrett Ashridge? One of the other alphas called. He was the mate, the husband. All eyes turned to Garrett. He stood very still, pale, silent. Garrett came to me 6 weeks ago, Lisa said. He confessed that he didn't know about the poison, that he had been manipulated. You eased. She paused. Let that sink in. I believe him. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Cassian looked surprised. He made terrible choices, Lisa continued. He was weak when I needed him to be strong. He abandoned me when I needed him most. But he was also a victim of Aldrin and Serafina's schemes. She looked at Garrett, saw the shock and gratitude and shame in his eyes. I don't forgive him, she said clearly, but I don't seek his destruction either. Cassian studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, he said, Garrett Ashridge will be stripped of his beta rank. He will serve the remainder of his life as an omega in labor service, but he will live. Garrett's knees buckled. He caught himself on a nearby chair, lowered his head. Thank you, he whispered. The tribunal convened immediately. The evidence was presented. Dr. Blackthorne testified about the contraceptive compounds. The herbalist was brought forward via video testimony. Written orders were examined. Medical records reviewed. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of testimony and evidence and legal arguments. Lisa sat in a chair on the raised platform, Cassian beside her. Her back ached, her feet were swollen. The baby was kicking hard, upset by the stress and commotion. But she didn't leave. She needed to see this through. Finally, the Council of Alphas reached a verdict. Alpha Aldrin Frostborn, the head counselor, announced, you are found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, manipulation of medical records, and abuse of Alpha authority. You are hereby stripped of your title. The Frostborn Pack territory is absorbed into the Ravenshade Dominion. You will be exiled to the Barren Wastes, where you will live out your remaining days alone. Aldrin's face went white, then red. He opened his mouth to protest, but 2 guards had already stepped forward to escort him from the hall. Serafina Thornfield, the counselor continued, you are found guilty of poisoning, conspiracy, and attempted murder. However, due to your pregnancy, execution is stayed. Sarah looked up. Hope flickered in her eyes. You will be held in the medical wing under guard until you give birth, the counselor said. Your child will be removed from your custody immediately upon birth and placed with an honorable family who will raise them with love and integrity. You will then be exiled to the Southern Sanctuary, where you will spend the remainder of your life in isolation. No, Sarah screamed. No, you can't take my baby. Please, please, I'm sorry. Lisa, please. She tried to run forward, but Garrett caught her, held her back even as she sobbed and fought. The child is innocent, Cassian said, his voice firm. They will be protected, loved. given every opportunity for a good life, but they will never know the mother who tried to murder their cousin. Guards stepped forward, gently but firmly took Sarah from Garrett's arms. She screamed, fought, but they led her away. The hall was silent. Then slowly the assembled wolves began to stand, one by one, showing respect, acknowledgement, justice had been served. 2 weeks later, on a bright August morning with the sun streaming through the windows of the Grand Cathedral, Lysandra Thornfield became Lysandra Ravenshade in the eyes of the Northern Alliance and the moon goddess herself. She was 8.5 months pregnant, so large that walking down the aisle felt like an expedition. But Cassian was there, offering his arm, supporting her every step. The cathedral was full. Every pack in the Alliance had sent representatives. The pews were packed with wolves dressed in their finest. But Lisa only had eyes for Cassian. He wore black and silver, formal, regal. But when he looked at her, his glacier eyes were soft, warm. The ceremony was traditional. Vows spoken, hands bound with silver cord. The pack link opened between them, a rush of warmth and connection that made Lysa gasp. She felt Cassian's strength, his certainty, his love, and he felt hers, her resilience, her forgiveness, her hope. When the priestess announced them mated, bonded, joined for life, the cathedral erupted in applause. But the coronation was still to come. They moved to the throne room. Cassian's throne sat on a raised dais of black marble. Beside it, a second throne had been placed, slightly smaller but no less magnificent, carved with moons and stars and wolves running through forests. The queen's throne. Lisa stood before it, Cassian beside her. The assembled pack filled the hall, hundreds of wolves, all watching. Dr. Matthias Blackthorne stepped forward, carrying a crown on a velvet pillow. Not the massive, heavy crown that Cassian wore. This one was delicate, silver worked into a design of crescent moons and stars, moonstones set at intervals, catching the light. Lysandra Ravenshade, Matthias said, his voice carrying through the hall. Do you swear to protect this pack, to lead with wisdom and compassion, to put the welfare of the many above the desires of the few? I do, Lisa said. Her voice was clear, strong. Do you swear to stand beside your mate, to counsel him in times of doubt, to temper justice with mercy, and to raise your children to be worthy heirs? I do. Matthias lifted the crown, placed it gently on Lysa's head. Then by the authority of the Northern Alliance and the blessing of the moon goddess, I crown you Queen Luna of the Ravenshade Dominion. May your reign be long and prosperous. The pack dropped to one knee, every wolf in the hall, heads bowed in respect. Lisa looked out over them. These were her people now, her responsibility, her family. She placed her hand on her belly, felt her daughter kick. Rise, she said softly, and they did. Cassian took her hand, led her to the thrones. They sat together side by side, king and queen, partners, equals. And Lysa felt for the first time in her entire life that she was exactly where she belonged. She gave birth 2 weeks later. The labor was long, 18 hours of pain and exhaustion, and moments where Lysa thought she might break. But Cassian was there, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, refusing to leave even when the midwives suggested he wait outside. I'm not going anywhere, he said. We do this together. And they did. Luna Rose Ravenshade entered the world at dawn, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and eyes that would eventually turn the same glacier blue as her father's. She came out screaming, healthy, strong, perfect. The midwife placed her on Lysa's chest, skin to skin, and the moment Lysa looked down at her daughter's face, she understood. This was what she had survived for, this tiny, perfect person, this new life. Hello, little one, she whispered. I'm your mama. Rose stopped crying, opened her eyes, looked up at Lysa with an expression of pure wonder. And Cassian, standing beside the bed, had tears streaming down his face. She's perfect, he said. She's absolutely perfect. He leaned down and kissed Lysa's forehead, then gently touched Rose's tiny hand. She gripped his finger immediately. Welcome to the world, daughter, he whispered. We've been waiting for you. 12 months later, the gardens of Ravenshade Dominion were in full summer bloom. Lisa knelt in the herb garden she had planted in the spring, teaching her daughter about the different plants. Rose was a year old now, walking, babbling, getting into everything with the fearless curiosity of a child who had never known anything but love and safety. This one is chamomile, Lisa said, touching the delicate white flowers. It makes tea that helps you sleep. Rose reached out with chubby fingers, touched the petals gently. Flower, she said proudly. That's right, sweetheart. Flower. Lisa was 3 months pregnant with their second child, a son this time. Cassian was convinced, said he could sense it. The pregnancy was easier than the first. She knew what to expect now, knew her body was strong, capable. Footsteps on the garden path. She turned. Cassian approached, his face thoughtful. Rose immediately toddled over to her father, arms raised. Up, Dada! Cassian scooped her up effortlessly, settled her on his hip. How are my girls? He asked. Perfect, Lisa said, standing carefully. She placed her hand on her belly, felt the flutter of new life. How was the council meeting? Productive, Cassian said. The former Frostborn territories are thriving. The new alpha we appointed is doing well. The people are fed, happy. He paused, set Rose down to chase a butterfly. I received word from the southern sanctuary, he said quietly, about Sarah. Lisa's heart clenched. And? She's struggling, but she's working in the orchards, keeping to herself. She writes letters asking about Lily. The Thorntons send her photos once a month. Lisa nodded, felt something settle in her chest, the last piece of anger, the final thread of resentment. She let it go. That's good, she said. Every mother should know her child is safe, even if she can't be there. Cassian pulled her close, careful of her belly. You are extraordinary, he said. I am a mother, Lisa replied, and a queen, and a woman who survived. That's all. That's everything. Rose came running back, clutching a flower she'd picked. Mama, pretty. Lisa knelt down, took the flower, kissed her daughter's head. Very pretty, my love. They sat together in the garden as the afternoon faded into evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink and violet, as the stars began to emerge one by one. And Liza thought about the woman she had been, frightened, broken, cast out into the cold to die. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had learned that worth wasn't given by others. It was claimed, earned, built from the ruins of what used to be. She was a mother, a queen, a survivor, and she was finally, truly, completely free. Lysandra Ravenshade, once cast out to die in a blizzard, once told she was barren and broken and worthless, knew the truth that had saved her. She was none of those things. She was enough. She had always been enough. And that knowledge, that certainty was the greatest power of all.